Hello.
Here, starting right on time. Thank you guys for all tuning in so early. Wonderful. I think our wonderful co-host either muted you all, or if not, go ahead and do that just for sound's sake. However, if anyone has a burning question in their loins at any point, obviously we want you to feel free to pipe up. This is the launch of our first White Rose Resistance digital live circle. And as we move forward with these, we will certainly begin more interactive portions as we feel out the Zoom platform, because there are other platforms that might be a little bit more conducive actually to engagement with hundreds of people on at the same time. So we're starting here on Zoom because so many people are familiar with it. And so it's an easier tool to use, but we may move to something more interactive in the future. So if you guys do have a burning question, just to make this thing not totally chaotic, we'd ask that you would type it in. And then my co-host for the White Rose Resistance can send those to me and prioritize the most pressing ones. But just to keep this thing moving smoothly, because there's should be over 100 of you on here tonight, and we want to make sure it moves smoothly. But we so appreciate you guys tuning in. We do have people on from all over the world, and we're very grateful for that for our first one. So thank you guys for waiting patiently and beating me here. That's wonderful. We love Jesus. We're Christians. It's not a Christian organization per se, but we're all Christians on staff. So I'm going to open up in a short word of prayer, and then we'll jump into this. Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for 2023, the first year without the spirit of Roe versus Wade and the spirit of the age. Quite so powerful. And thank you for your providence. Thank you for how you're moving in the country and in the hearts of your people in a way that I have certainly never seen before in my few years in this fight. And so we thank you for each man or woman on tonight. We ask that you'd bless them, you'd protect them and their families, their children, and you would inspire them more so than they already are to be engaged in the fight for life. We ask that you would protect any streaming issues, that no internet would fall out or live stream would fall out, and you would just bless our time together this evening as we really commit this organization to you. We really ask for everyone to be praying for this organization, those who have helped launch this into this new post-Roe moment in this movement. And so we commit this organization to you as a fragrant sacrifice and offering, and ask that you would move powerfully through this new organization, through me as its leader, and through these amazing group of people that make this ministry possible. We praise in your name. Amen. All righty, guys. Well, thank you so much. I want to start with just a thanks. I don't want to bore you guys. I want to get right into things that will bless you and equip you, but I think it's only proper. I think, especially as a CEO and founder, I think it's very important for people in my position to remember our position and our calling and our role as a steward. And so everyone says it, we can't run this ministry without you, and everyone wants funds to run a nonprofit. But, that statement is no less true because of it. And so it makes me think of Philippians 4:14. And I just wanted to read a couple verses here with you guys. Paul writing to the church in Philippi saying, "Yet it was kind of you to share my trouble. And you Philippians yourselves know that in the beginning of the gospel, when I left Macedonia, no church entered into partnership with me in giving and receiving, except you only. Even in Thessalonica, you sent me help for my needs once and again. Not that I seek the gift, but I seek the fruit that increases to your credit." And so I was thinking about that tonight as I was putting together some final thoughts for our time together this evening, because my first probably pro-life talk was at 18 or 19 years old. I'm 31 now. And my first message in a church, I was probably 20 or 21. So about a decade of speaking in churches. And it was so difficult for the vast majority of my time in this movement to get any church to let me share before service, much less preach on the issue. And so I feel like there's this new season that the church is in. where I'm seeing more excitement, I'm seeing more generosity, I'm seeing more passion and commitment than I've ever seen before. And so it just reminded me of what Paul said, that he said early on, no church entered into partnership with me. And I was like, that's how I felt for years. Like, this man, what the heck? Like, this is the bride of Christ. And no one will enter into partnership with me in this fight in any meaningful way. And now, of course, that's completely changed. And now my schedule's too full to fit in the amount of churches I would like to do. But you guys are part of that. You have entered into partnership with me. And as the CEO and founder of the White Rose Resistance, I just want to say what should be the obvious, but it oftentimes isn't in sort of the 501c3 world, is that we consider your partnership a sacred trust. You know, whether you're at $35 a month or if you're at 5 or 10 grand from last year, it's all the same to me and my team in the sense of our stewardship, right? This is not our funds. These are the Lord's funds, and you've made an eternal investment. You're sowing seeds into eternity. And we consider that kind of giving a sacred trust, because like Paul says, I'm not seeking the gift, but I'm seeking the fruit that increases to your credit, because the fruit that your funds allows us to grow and develop is not just to our credit and to the unborn's credit, but it's to yours too. It's another jewel in your crown. So anyways, I just wanted to thank you guys for that. Once again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. We have the White Rose Resistance team on an account as well to get those questions to me, as I'm just on one laptop right now. I don't have my 2 or 3 screens to be able to handle this quite as well. So what is this? What is the White Rose Resistance? Why the digital live circle? I think there's maybe 5 reasons and purposes for this. And so I just kind of want to set the tone and expectation for you guys. Really, this is a small way for me to show my thanks. That would be the first reason. It's just a small little way for me to say thank you and to incentivize new people to become donors. Obviously, you know, that's a reason why we made it donor exclusive. But I think it's the least I can do, even with my busy schedule and the 3rd baby a month old, is to hang out with you guys, to sow into you. And because eventually I want to take, 3 or 4 speaking events a month, not 10 or 9 or whatever I've been doing, and so I want to equip and raise up new leaders and speakers, whether that comes from this digital circle or elsewhere. We want our allies of the White Rose Resistance to be some of our most eloquent, equipped, and passionate defenders of life, because we don't just want our donors to feel like they checked a box, right? Like, well, I give to that pro-life ministry, that Seth dude, so I did the pro-life thing. And of course, ministries can't operate without you doing that thing, the giving. But listen, if this is a holocaust, as we all believe it is, then giving $35 a month, it does not meet our spiritual obligation as Christians. And so I just want to sow into you guys the kind of training that I've spent a decade kind of continuing to refine myself into what I like to think is a spear into the heart of the Leviathan. I want to share some of that with you and pour that into you, so that when you're at Super Bowl Sunday with pro-choice Uncle Bob, you don't freeze up like you did 4 years ago or whatever. And by the way, I remember that. The reason I did my senior project at 18 years old at Whittier High School on abortion was because I was like, I don't have good answers. And so, I've been there. I know what it feels like. It sucks, to not have an answer to someone that asks you something about the pro-life issue. So I want you guys just like lightning fast pro-life ninjas. Like I want to call you guys the Bane of Baal. Right? I mean, that you wake up and demons just start screaming. And because, as you've heard me say before all the time, this is Satan's sacrament, right? The abortion is the demonic parody of the Eucharist, as Peter Kreeft says. That's why it uses the same holy words. This is my body, but with the opposite blasphemous meaning. And so if we're going to be like Gideon in Judges 6 and walk out of the cave we've been hiding in and start tearing down the high places of child sacrifice, at the very least, you need to be equipped and confident. The second reason would be to build a community with allies of the White Rose, right? And so we're not going to have a ton of time to like chit chat back and forth with one another this evening. We're trying to keep it at an hour, but moving forward, as we do these once a month, the goal would be, and whether that's on Zoom or another platform, to add a more interactive feature as well, because I think that's cool. And I want people getting to know each other, or maybe developing a friendship, maybe connecting in activism as we grow. And I think that's really cool. Third, it's a feeding ground for new ideas, right? This is a feeding ground for new ideas. Yes, I think I'm a good speaker. I think I'll be a good CEO. I spend a lot of time thinking about this issue, but I'm not that high on my horse that I think no one else could come up with good ideas, right? I'm just like I get told good ideas all the time, and I love it. I want other people thinking and bringing those to the table, whether you're a donor or just someone coming up to me after a speaking event. And so if you guys have ideas, obviously we have a vision. I've got like a 3, 5, and 10-year vision already in my head for what the White Rose Resistance can, and I believe will become. But I think this is a good opportunity for those ideas to be shared as well. Fourthly, I kind of already said this one. I want to feed the hungry, if I may use that language. I don't need to inspire you guys, do I? You're already at the precipice, right? You're the sons and daughters of Issachar, aren't you? The men and women who understood the times and knew what the people of God ought to do in the time and space that God had ordained them to live in, to borrow from Paul in Acts, right? God ordained the boundaries of our existence. So you're already hungry for truth and action. In churches, I'm trying to wake up the sleeping giant in America, the church. I don't need to do that in these calls. That's already been done. Obviously, that's why you're here. And so I want to equip you to be Moloch hunters, right? To be the bane of Baal, to be pro-life warriors. And lastly, we want to build an army of foot soldiers waiting for the command to charge, if you will, right? Because we're growing fast. And so I want to give you guys some exciting updates about the White Rose Resistance. I couldn't have imagined how fast we would have grown, opening a checking account in March or April, and really launching officially right after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which I believe was providential, by the way. I don't think that was a coincidence. So we're a very young organization, and I think God has blessed me and already having a little bit of a speaking platform. I think the getting the word out and speaking opportunities helped the organization grow a lot, but I could not have guessed how much we would have grown before the end of 2022. So we have hired a full-time executive assistant for myself, finally. I've been losing my mind over here, guys. I can't tell you. It's yeah. I used to say I'm just staying above the water. No, I've just been drowning for about a year. And so if you've ever texted me or messaged me or emailed me and you're like, man, that guy sucks, he doesn't get back to, I'm sorry, I probably just didn't see it or I forgot to get to it. So I'm trying to be more effective in my giftings with a full-time assistant. We also have a full-time social media person who runs everything on the back end full-time. And so that's been a huge blessing. And now we're ready, guys, to probably hire 4 more full-time people, hopefully by the summer or June is the goal. You can't hire too fast when you grow quickly as an organization. That can actually put you in really big trouble. If you get the wrong people in the wrong seats just because you have the money to hire, that could destroy your organization. So we're moving as quickly as is wise. And then we just hired an interim chief of staff. Most organizations at this stage, the CEO would be the visionary and the integrator, right? The visionary and the person making things happen. But to be honest with you guys, with my speaking, like 40 events between this last Sunday and the end of May, but my third baby and the travel and the podcast and the fundraising and the meetings, the organization's already at the level where I'm killing myself. I can't be visionary and integrator. So for the health of the organization and the effectiveness of the organization, we've hired an interim chief of staff who's a longtime friend who doesn't need to be brought up to speed on anything. He's already fully there and ready to go. So he will handle much of the hiring, much of the teamwork, much of the new business solutions to get the right people in the right seats at the right time that will work together in a very cohesive manner. So those are some updates on the organizational front. And so because of all of that, we want to make sure that we're investing into our foot soldiers, if you will, waiting for the command to charge, because we will be hiring coordinators to work with and mobilize, let's say, volunteers and grassroots activists to engage the culture of death at the local level. And you're the beginning of those foot soldiers. I would love to pay all of you guys as 1099 contractors to engage the culture of death at the local level, but that's just not reasonable, unless you're like getting one-time gifts from Jeff Bezos' ex-wife of $275 million. Did you guys hear about that? $275 million one-time gift last year to Planned Parenthood, the biggest gift Planned Parenthood's ever received in the organization's history from one demonic woman. Yeah, so I don't have that. So we want to work with people like you who are so fired up that you're not wanting or looking for a position here to be high. You want to be faithful with what God has given you at the local level, volunteering your time, talent, and of course, treasure. And so I see this as kind of the beginning of that. And so when we start hiring and working with coordinators to mobilize people at the local level, we're ready to go. We got people all over the country right here to start doing that kind of nationwide engagement activism at the local level. So that's a little bit about, I guess, why the White Rose Resistance Digital Life Circle. And we're so excited that you guys have tuned in this evening. So why the White Rose Resistance at all, and why now? I've been aware of the story of the White Rose Resistance for many years, because when you're in pro-life activist circles, you study or you hear the stories of saints and heroes that have gone before you. So I've been aware of the story for some time, but I didn't really start studying it until the 2021. And then I first used it in a talk at Love Life California at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, January of 2021. And the story brought people to tears in a way I had not seen before. I had not seen that level of emotions and engagement to my conclusion in a talk quite like that before. And so I started reading more about the White Rose Resistance. I started studying it. I watched a film on it. I got the letters from Hans and Sophie and their parents and Christoph Probst. And you can get a book of all the letters that many of these members wrote to each other and their family members. I started feeling like I knew Sophie. And so it took on a life of its own. And as I studied it, the correlations to our current moment couldn't have been more obvious. And so I met with a friend one time as I was shaping the vision and mission and branding of the White Rose Resistance. And we were like, there's something, I think, bigger here than maybe you realized at Love Life California. This is the kind of story that moves hearts like other stories don't. This is the kind of story that will get people ready to die for the truth. And there's this sense in the church, right? We love the saints of the past, right? The heroes of the faith that have gone before us, because we think that we would have been like them, right? Or we hope that had we lived then, we would have been like them. And I think there's something unique about the story of the White Rose Resistance. We know Bonhoeffer, we know Wilberforce, we know Oskar Schindler. I mean, we know these stories, but there's something about it. Maybe it's because they were 21 and 24. Maybe it was their youth, the way that they spoke, the passion, the willingness to lay down their lives when so few others were, especially at their age, and the correlations with our current culture of death. I started realizing, you know what, this story cuts through the fibers, it cuts through the marrow, it cuts through the conscience in a way that I couldn't with other stories. And so I do believe we're living in this Kairos moment. And I think it was providential that God gave me the story of the White Rose Resistance. And you know what? It always makes me think of something Winston Churchill said in 1941. And what he's getting at is he's getting at this idea of a Kairos moment, right? Which my pastor, Rob McCoy, talks about all the time, right? It's not Chronos. It's not like we started at 8:00 p.m. Central, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific. No. Like Kairos is like, oh, Pastor Jack Hibbs knows what time it is, baby. Like that's a quality of time. That's something different. And so I believe that Kairos moments are unique. They come at certain seasons, at certain times, but not every moment in American history has been this massive Kairos moment. And so in 1941, Churchill says this, and I think it so strikes the spirit of the White Rose Resistance, and I think where all of you are at. I think this short quote from Churchill, I think will strike us all on a similar chord, because we all sense, oh wow, that's true today. So here's what he said. Churchill, right, the man who saved Western civilization, for goodness sakes. He said, the destiny of mankind is not decided by material computation. In other words, follow the science, Fauci, right? We're not just matter. We're not just stuff. We're not just blood and bones, right? Our destiny is more than material computation. When great forces are on the move in the world, stirring all men's souls, drawing them from their firesides to cast aside wealth, comfort, and the pursuit of happiness in response to impulses that are awe-striking and irresistible. We learn that we're spirits and not animals. And something is going on in space and time and beyond space and time, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. I mean, man, if we had politicians that spoke like that today in America, my goodness, let's not talk about our current president. I mean, what beautiful high language, right? And Churchill, a man who we're not sure was born again, we're not positive was born again, is still saying something is going on. and that something going on is so significant that it spells duty for you. You know this moment we're living in is different. You know there's something different about this season we're living in. So what are you going to do about it? I think that's what Churchill's saying there. And as you guys have heard me say in talks, perhaps, I think the overturning of Roe versus Wade proved this like nothing else could have. June 24th, 2022, the day that the most wicked Supreme Court decision in American history gets overturned after Dred Scott v. Sanford, gets overturned on the same day in the church calendar as the Nativity of St. John the Baptist. The day in the church calendar when Christians celebrate Mary visiting Elizabeth and the prenatal John the Baptist doing backflips in the uterus. The moment when two fetuses recognize one another's humanity, one of whom is God, the second member of the Trinity, who's knitting John the Baptist together in the womb while he knits himself together in the womb. Of all the days that Roe v. Wade gets overturned, are you kidding me? I mean, come on. What's it been said? Providence is when God winks, you know? And so the question, I think, for us as Christians is, do we still believe that God intervenes in the affairs of men? And I think, and I would say, yes, I still believe so. And so something is going on. Great forces are on the move in the world. And I believe that they have been stirring your soul and my soul away from our comfortable firesides, our Netflix and chill, right? Away from our wealth, right? Away from everything that lets us remain comfortable and get off the bench and onto the battlefield. And so I think that's really the spirit of the White Rose Resistance, is something's going on and we got to lay it all on the line now. There's no more excuses. But listen, guys, let me give a disclaimer here. I don't claim to have a secret sauce. I won't promise you that we will abolish abortion in my lifetime, but I believe we will. I can't promise you that your giving will bring about the end to abortion in your lifetime. But you know what? We're going to live and work like it will. Because whether we do or not, and this is a very important point, I think, for Christians, whether we do or not is irrespective of our duty now. I mean, think of what Thomas Paine said before 1776, right? He wrote Common Sense, right? He argued for American independence. Not a Christian, I believe. I don't believe Thomas Paine was born again. He said, if trouble may come, let it be in my day, so that my children may know peace. I mean, compare that to, I don't know, Rick Warren, Ed Stetzer, Tim Keller, and Andy Stanley. I mean, compare that to the run-of-the-mill American pastor or just Christian, right, in America, who avoids trouble, avoids conflict, avoids controversy, and does what my pastor Rob McCoy says, waits downstream to pick up human heartache that they helped create through their political apathy upstream. We sow the seeds of our grandchildren's own destruction, but at least we got to chill. At least our natural rights were not in so much danger by the state that it affected our way of life. Compare that to the American kind of love of liberty right before 1776, saying, actually, I want the trouble in my day. I want the full brunt of evil in my day, so that my children and grandchildren will know peace. And so I just want you guys to know that's my spirit. That's going to be a lot of the culture that we're trying to build with the White Rose Resistance, a recognition of the Kairos moment we're in, a work ethic that believes we will end abortion in our lifetime, but whether we do or not is beside our duty. It reminds me of something Gandalf the Grey said, one of the greatest theologians to have ever walked the earth, well, Tolkien's earth at least. And it's in Return of the King near the end of the book. And I believe he's speaking to Aragorn, but Gandalf says, he says, other evils there are that may come, right? This is not the end of the fight against evil. And he says, for Sauron, right, the nemesis in Lord of the Rings, Sauron is himself but a servant or emissary. Yet it is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those that live after may have clean earth to till. What weather they shall have is not ours to rule. This is powerful. Listen, Alexis McGill Johnson, the president of Planned Parenthood, okay, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the National Organization for Women, the Guttmacher Institute, the list goes on and on and on. They're all servants or emissaries of a far greater evil and master, the Lord of Flies, Satan himself, that snake, that demon, right? So this is not the end of evil, right? Unless Christ comes back sooner, we're all raptured. Other evils are going to come. It's not our part to try to master all of this, but to be a steward, to do what is in us in this moment, to uproot the evil that we see in the fields that we know. Don't worry about what's happening in Maine if you live in Michigan. Don't worry about what's happening in Washington if you live in Indiana. Uproot the evil in the fields that you know, that you have a proximity to, that you have an influence on, so that those that live after may have clean earth to till. And so this is the heart of the White Rose Resistance. We uproot, we attack, we defeat, we discredit, we tear down evil in our time. And if we fail, then may our failure be glorious, planting the seeds of resistance for the next generation to water. Because although rose blossoms may perish in the fall, they reappear in the spring, don't they? And so while all of the members of the White Rose Resistance in Nazi Germany were found and executed, their sacrifice planted the seeds of resistance in the hearts of millions whose actions keep alive the legacy of the White Rose. And so while we face a silent but far more deadly holocaust of abortion today, your sacrifice, brothers and sisters, will water those seeds of resistance. Thousands will be awakened and stirred to action. The White Rose will blossom again. And we, like Sophie, can say, the sun still shines. Not to be a total Lord of the Rings nerd on all you guys. You guys are probably like, wow, Seth is way more of a nerd than I thought, but so be it. In the Fellowship of the Ring, and by the way, these are quotes from the book, right? I love the movie, but come on, you got to go back to the original text, amen? In the Fellowship of the Ring, Haldir, he's from Lothlorien, and he's a friend of Aragorn. He says, the world is indeed full of peril. And in it, there are many dark places, but still there is much that is fair. And though in all the lands, love is now mingled with grief, it grows perhaps the greater. There is a moment, right, when things seem at their darkest. I mean, who's felt like that the last 2.5 years? For goodness gracious. There is a moment when hope seems extinguished, right? And yet it's often at those moments that mankind awakens to their duty. It's a tragic lesson of history, unfortunately. We have to get really uncomfortable to start waking up. So when the enemy overplays his hand, the good people start to wake up. Dostoevsky once said, the darker the night, the brighter the stars. The deeper the grief, the closer is God. And so, as I believe Paul says, he wants us to shine like stars in a crooked and depraved generation. And if there was ever a moment for the church to shine like stars in a crooked and depraved culture of death, it would be right now. I'm not speaking hyperbolically. I believe we're almost past the Rubicon line. And I said this at a Calvary Chapel in Las Vegas two days ago on Sunday. I'm not trying to rile up congregations into a frenzy just to see a reaction. I speak the way I speak because I believe we're almost there. We're almost past that line of no return, where we, the people, are not going to be able to wield the kind of political power anymore to protect our rights and the rights of our children. And that's because of our tolerance of child sacrifice for 50 years. We've been sowing the seeds of our own destruction. We've been putting in place the premises that justify our own enslavement. So as we transition to some equipping, because I want you guys to be pro-life ninjas, of course, here's something the White Rose Resistance said in one of their first leaflets, right, that they were illegally distributing around Germany. They said, an end in terror is preferable to terror without end. An end in terror is preferable to terror without end. And they recognized already in 1942, right, that they were in terror without end. That unless the good people and the church woke up, all this terror was only going to continue. It wasn't going to get away. Hitler wasn't going to be satisfied with just Europe, right? And so an end in terror, I'll take that one. I'll take that one. And I think that needs to be our spirit in the White Rose Resistance, and obviously in the American church as well. But obviously, it's axiomatic to say we're not in the same moment that Hans and Sophie Scholl were in. We're not being arrested for protesting Planned Parenthoods. Now, some people are, but I mean, they were murdered, right? They just threw some leaflets on a university and they had their heads chopped off. Listen, I'm aware of Mark Hoke. I'm having him on the podcast, I think, in DC. I'm aware of the people being arrested by the FBI outside of abortion centers for sidewalk counseling. I'm saying we're getting there. But for the most part, most of you and me are probably in the next few years aren't going to be arrested for just going to the March for Life or just sharing the truth online. We're not there yet. And so we need to be able to lay it all on the line so we never get there, because it's not about us, right? We're not selfishly demanding our rights. We're exercising our responsibility. And so, as I've said before, if you don't get the right to life right, you won't get any other rights right. And I think we're starting to sense how true that statement is. But what am I saying? You guys know all of this already. I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are all allies of the White Rose. And so I want you guys to get equipped. So let me jump in here and check any questions as we transition. Continue to feel free to drop those all in as I want to get to the most significant ones before the end of the evening. Someone asked about merch. Yeah, the merch is available through the Instagram and through the website. So if you go to the whiterose.life, there's a button there for the merch. It's also linked through the Instagram store at the White Rose Resistance. We're refilling our inventory now. We had sold out a lot at Chino Hills and when we launched the online store, but we're filling that inventory again if you guys want to get any. Unfortunately, this was our Uber exclusive one. I see some other people have them there. So thank you guys for doing that. We wanted to create clothing that didn't just communicate a message, but was actually beautiful to wear, that people would want to wear, and start the kind of conversations that I want all of you guys having. Do I have a Facebook page? Someone asked. Yeah, and Facebook and Instagram have made my life extremely difficult. If you go to Instagram right now, guys, and you type in Seth Gruber, you will not find my Instagram page. You've got to type in Seth Gruber official, the entire 3 words, and then it comes up. So they've made it hard to search for me. My Facebook page gets like sometimes 8 to 20 likes, and I have like 25,000 followers. There's no way that should be possible. So, and TikTok has shadow banned me as well. So anyways, difficult to do, but appreciate you guys helping share the content as we continue to grow. A lot of other great comments and questions here. We'll get to those a little later and as we have time. But if you have any burning questions, please go ahead and get those in. So here's where I thought we'd spend the second half of the evening, guys. Pretty basic. I thought we'd get down to brass tacks, go back to basics, if you will, because I just want you guys equipped, right? I think that's the best starting point that we could begin at for the launch of the White Rose Digital Circle. I always get endless questions after an event or emails, and I often don't have time to get to all of them. So yeah, here's a good medium to be able to do a little bit of that. When I was 18, I started pouring myself into pro-life apologetics, and into making sure I had an answer for every argument. And I continue to do that. I continue to try to make sure that I'm as indestructible as possible, that as that spear into the heart of the abortion industry. I don't claim to be an expert on much else, but I want to perfect myself as a warrior on this battlefront alone so that I'm more effective. And so having said that, I want to start with basics with you guys. And then as we build this out, we'll get deeper into strategy, right? We'll have interactive portions. We'll have question and answer. Maybe we'll use this as the catalyst for a White Rose Academy that I already have envisioned in my mind. Lots of fun ways, but why don't we start with just the most basics? Let's start with your base layer before we give you chainmail and armor, if you will. And so what do we believe? I mean, you guys know what we believe, but I think it's First Peter that says, always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you for the hope that you have. So if it's true that we should always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks us why we believe in the gospel, in Jesus, then we should also be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks why we would be opposed to a woman's issue like abortion. In other words, if we should have answers to gospel questions, then we also ought to have answers to how the gospel functions as a lens through which we see the world. And obviously, this is called a Christian worldview, right? Take every thought captive, right? We tear down any stronghold that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. But for too long, the church and youth groups, have focused on just equipping the next generation to tell people that Jesus loves them and he died for you. And that's beautiful and true, but in a crooked and depraved generation that can't even tell you what a man or a woman is, and if there's anything as objective truth, Christians need to love the Lord their God with all their mind as well. And this is why I watch so many friends from Westmont College and my high school youth group walk away from the faith when they were encountered with anything, quote unquote, difficult questions about the faith and about morality and the evil world we live in, when really Christians have been answering those questions for thousands of years with really good answers, but we've abandoned the life of the mind. And so listen, I don't want anyone here to think that I'm being too simplistic or that I'm assuming ignorance amongst you, because I think you guys are all amazing, informed citizens committed to self-government. So please don't hear me wrong. But I think it is important to go back to basics, if not to learn, then to put language to what you already know. Does that make sense? So I don't think I'm going to tell you guys anything right now that you're like, oh, I never heard that before. But I want you to be able to articulate it and to be a effective, eloquent, and pain in the ass. I want you to be a pain in the butt to the culture of death. I want you to tick off the spirit of the age. Now, obviously, everyone's approach is a little different. And so obviously, you guys know my approach is a little bit more of a hammer in search of a nail. But in interpersonal relationships, you don't always do that. I don't do that. I changed someone's mind at Westmont who was pro-choice to pro-life, and I was gracious and kind and patient. Believe it or not, I can actually be that, because conversations in interpersonal relationships is very different than me on stage at UC Berkeley, right? And so giving you the tools of thought you need to be able to do that is, I think, the most basic but helpful thing I could do right now. So we start sending out hundreds of people who always have an answer, who can tear down anything that sets itself up against the Imago Dei, against the humanity and dignity of unborn children. So, all right, what do we believe? Well, we believe in Dr. Fauci, right? We believe that we should follow the science, perhaps the only true thing that he has ever said. Of course, when he says science, he means his kooky philosophical anthropological view of personhood. That masquerades as the science, amen. That's what he means. But I agree, Fauci, we should follow the science. And so what is the science, right? What is the unborn? At the end of the day, isn't that the most basic question? So, when you're in conversations, and, obviously I get this from Scott Klusendorf, my mentor, which is actually from Greg Kokel from Stand to Reason many decades ago. But, when you're in a conversation with someone on abortion, use this analogy. Hey, so I want you to imagine for a second, you're standing at your kitchen sink cleaning dishes one evening because God hasn't blessed you with a dishwasher. And as you're standing there cleaning your dishes, your 3-year-old toddler walks up behind you. Now your back is turned and your toddler Timmy says, "Mommy or Daddy, can I kill this?" What's going to be the first question out of your mouth in response to your toddler's question, "Can I kill this?" And the whole audience goes, "What is it?" Or "Kill what?" Exactly. And so if you turn around and toddler Timmy has a cockroach, dad might say, "Here, son, here's a hammer. Don't tell mom, squishy, squishy." Right. But if he's holding the neighbor kitty, I assume you'd have a different reply. And if he's holding his little sister by the throat, now we need counseling, don't we? And so you couldn't answer the question, "Can I kill this?" unless you answered the question, "What is it?" Okay, so obviously you guys are like, "Okay, Seth, let's get more complicated." But it's just a fun analogy to use in those conversations to get down to the most basic question: what is the unborn? And so let's answer that question. I mean, shall we? Let's answer that question. So the science of embryology has actually answered that question for many, many years. So ology, study of embryo, embryology, the study of the embryo. So you will find basically any textbook on embryology on basically any university campus today admit 3 things or communicate the truth about 3 things about prenatal life. And that is this: from the moment of conception, there is a distinct, living, and whole human being. From the moment of conception, there's a distinct, living, and whole human being. And I didn't cherry pick those terms, guys. You can tell people this, right? When you're communicating for life. I didn't cherry pick those terms. You'll find that in the Developing Human Clinically Oriented Embryology by Keith L. Moore, right? And by the way, we're going to send a follow-up email with some notes for you guys, okay, if you're losing your mind here, just as a blessing for you guys to have something to go back to. But that's one of the leading embryology textbooks on university campuses today, the Developing Human Clinically Oriented Embryology by Keith L. Moore. Use the terms distinct, living, and whole. Okay, so what do those terms mean? Distinct. Well, we all know what distinct means: separate, unique, one of a kind. And so we're all distinct. Everyone is distinct. You're unique just like everyone else, right, guys? So if the unborn is distinct from the moment of conception, well, then that means the body in her body is not her body, right? So this is just basic science. And how can you prove this? I don't know. Me, a preborn male. I was a preborn male in the womb. And so therefore my mother did not have male genitalia. That was a different body. Distinct, living. Why living? Because dead things don't grow. And the unborn child meets all the requirements for a living thing that we learned in like junior high biology or high school biology. So they're living. And because they're directing their own internal growth from within. And this is a very important point, actually. People often confuse the development of the unborn child with a constructed thing. And what do I mean by that? Have you noticed how many pro-choicers, they suddenly don't defend abortion if you're talking about like 3rd trimester or the 8th or 9th month? We all know pro-choicers who are a little bit more moderate. They're not on board with the DNC platform on this issue. So suddenly they don't really like the idea of killing a baby at a later term, a later stage of development. And so have you ever wondered why that is? It's like, what? That's kind of weird. It's a human being the whole time. Well, I'll give you the answer. They're confusing development with construction. Those are very, very different. A constructed thing gradually comes into existence as individual parts are added, right? So think of a Corvette on an assembly line, right? Have you guys ever been there when one of those, by the way, where you see the car and all the different pieces get added? People think of human development like that. They really do. It's quite sad. They think that the baby becomes more of a person or more human as different parts are added. So let's say you've got the frame. Any car lovers in here? Any brothers? Who says that we've got a Corvette when there's only the frame? Yeah, you're like, no way, right? How about the frame and the wheels? Everyone's going on. All right, some of you would say, until that bad boy has the sexiest red paint job I've ever seen, it ain't a Corvette, right? So constructed things gradually come into existence as different parts are added. Developed things, listen, developed things come into existence all at once and then gradually unfold their potential. Develop things come into existence all at once and then gradually unfold their potential. Because just like an infant doesn't have the potential of a 3-year-old, a 3-year-old doesn't have the potential of a teenager, but all that potential is already there. There's no such thing as a potential person. There are only actual persons with great potential. So that's how development works. Okay, so it is a living human being because it's developing itself from within, right? Pregnant moms don't rub their uterus and say, "Don't forget to grow today, Timmy." Right? Timmy's developing himself independent of whether mom wants him to or not, because it's not a constructed thing. There's no outside builder. Well, it's God, yes, but you know what I mean. There's no outside builder. The baby's developing themselves from within. So distinct, living, and whole. And whole actually kind of fleshes out the concept I was just saying. A whole human being is a human being who already has everything they need at the moment of conception to realize their full growth and potential, right? So you guys may have heard me use the Polaroid camera analogy, right? When you take a picture of a beautiful sunset in Santa Barbara and the photo gets spit out, let's say I rip it out of your hands and I tear it up into little pieces and I throw it into the ocean. Are you upset with me? Of course you are. But I say, brother, sister, chill out. It wasn't a picture of a sunset. It was just a black smudgy on a white piece of paper. And you'd go, "Oh, Seth, you science denier, what are you talking about?" The sunset was already there. We just couldn't see it yet. Everything that was necessary for the photo to realize its full development was already present when the photo got spit out. It just needed time. That's how human development works. You had everything you needed from the moment of conception to realize your future full growth and development as a participating member of the human species. Even if we couldn't see you yet, you also just needed time. So this is how embryology textbook talk about prenatal life: distinct, living, and whole. So that's the science. Okay, so you didn't come from an embryo. You once were an embryo. It's not, you didn't come from an embryo and then like turn into something else. No, zygote, embryo, fetus, infant, toddler, teenager, grandma, and grandpa. These are different terms we use to describe the same human being at a different stage in their physical development. And by the way, you can also just use language definitions. Here's a fun one. What's conception mean? It means a new human being is coming to existence. So, when they say, "Well, no, human life doesn't begin at conception," that's literally what conception means. It means when a new human being comes into existence, when sperm and egg meet, sperm and egg die, and a new human being comes into existence. So yes, words have meanings, despite everything that the LGBTQ LMNOP culture wants to tell you. So that's the science. Now here's some fun. Let's have some fun. Isn't it fun when you can quote your enemies to make your own point? I love doing that. I think it's fun when you can quote your enemies to prove your own arguments and points. So again, we'll send you notes on this. Okay, guys. I also have an old podcast episode called, I think it's called Abortion Leaders in Their Own Words. Abortion Leaders in Their Own Words. You can find it on YouTube or on any iTunes podcast or Spotify. And I go through a bunch of these. So that's always fun. Here's Peter Singer. Anyone ever heard that name? That infanticidal demonic maniac at Princeton University who defends the killing of babies up to 1 year after they're born. Peter Singer writes in his book, Practical Ethics, from 1993, I believe. Here's Peter Singer for you. It is possible to give human being a precise meaning. We can use it as the equivalent to member of the species Homo sapien. Whether a being is a member of a given species is something that can be determined scientifically by an examination of the nature of the chromosomes in the cells of living organisms. In this sense, there is no doubt that from the first moments of its existence, an embryo conceived from human sperm and eggs is a human being. Now, many pro-abortion people today, right, they'll admit the unborn is a human, but they'll say, but it's not a person, whatever that means. And we can get to those arguments later, but they'll say it's a human, but not a person. But most of them will admit it's a human being today because they just look so stupid if they say it's not, right? And then here's a fun one, California Medicine, a journal from the 1970s. I don't know if it's still around today. A journal from the 1970s published a piece called A New Ethic for Medicine and Society. So this is 3 years before Roe, 3 years before Roe. And this is a medical journal, not a philosophical journal. Okay, you ready for this? Remember the Supreme Court said in 1973 that we didn't really know when human life began because people disagreed, so we didn't really know. Well, the doctors at the time in 1970 were saying everyone knew that life began at conception. So you ready for this? Here's a pro-abortion medical journal from 1970. It's a little bit of high language, but you guys are smart. They say, since the old ethic has not yet been fully displaced, it has been necessary to separate the idea of abortion from the idea of killing, which continues to be socially abhorrent. The result has been a curious avoidance of the scientific fact, which everyone really knows, that human life begins at conception and is continuous, whether intra or extrauterine until death. The very considerable semantic gymnastics which are required to rationalize abortion as anything but taking a human life would be ludicrous if they were not often put forth under socially impeccable auspices. It is suggested that this schizophrenic sort of subterfuge is necessary because while a new ethic is being accepted, that old ethic has not yet been rejected, end quote. California Medicine, a pro-abortion medical journal from 1970, guys, just told you everyone knew at that time that human life begins at conception. But we wanted to introduce a new ethic, the ethic of eugenics, the ethic of relativism, the ethic that abortion is healthcare. And so we had to use language to introduce that new ethic because that old ethic was still around, darn it. That Judeo-Christian worldview ethic that viewed human beings as valuable simply because they were human beings. So they say we have to use semantic gymnastics to make this idea plausible in the minds of Americans. I mean, isn't that some damning language? So there's our enemies admitting that we're right. How about a Planned Parenthood president? That's always fun, right? Let's see, Faye Waddleton. Anyone remember Faye Waddleton? That's older than me. Yeah, former Planned Parenthood president. She said in 1997, speaking to Miss Magazine in an interview, she said, I think we have deluded ourselves into believing that people don't know that abortion is killing. So any pretense that abortion is not killing is a signal of our ambivalence, a signal that we cannot say, yes, it kills a fetus. There's the president of Planned Parenthood. Then there was Alan Guttmacher, the president of Planned Parenthood from the 70s, who wrote in his book, Life in the Making, on page 3, regarding whether people knew when human life begins. He said, quote, this all seems so simple and evident that it's hard to picture a time when it wasn't part of the common knowledge. Okay, so I could go on and on and on. That's always fun. So does human life begin at conception? Yes, but not because we say so as pro-lifers, but because the people who kill babies say so, and because the science of embryology has said so for decades. So that's kind of the basics of where we should begin. The argument when you're in these conversations immediately turns philosophical, doesn't it? And any of you guys comfortable with these conversations, you know it immediately turns philosophical because they can't deny the science for that long. It's just ludicrous. And then go ahead and quote those people for them, and you know that conversation will quickly be over. So the question of when human life begins only becomes difficult to answer when you want to start killing people. Suddenly they're like, oh, no, I don't really, oh, I mean, who can say? Who can say when human life begins? Until you want to start killing people, that question is actually very easy to answer. And so we'll save a little bit of the minutia of pro-abortion arguments for next month, because I think with our time dwindling, it would be better if we took a deep dive next month than try to pack in 40 minutes into 4 minutes. But what we'll focus on next month is how nearly every pro-abortion argument puts in place the premises that justifies our own enslavement. Meaning, any argument to dehumanize and kill the unborn can also be used as an argument to dehumanize and kill some born person that also fails to meet the litmus test for personhood, right? And this is the problem. When you separate human value and human dignity from being human, that door stays open forever, right? Because when being human is not enough to have a right to life, then where do those rights come from? If not from being human. Then the elite, the high priests of secular progressivism, they get to invent the functions, cognitive abilities, and accidental properties that they say you have to evidence or exercise to have value, to be a person. And so as Dr. Mildred Jefferson, the woman who turned Ronald Reagan pro-life, would say, today it is the unborn child. Tomorrow it is likely to be the elderly or those who are incurably ill. Who knows but that a little later it might be anyone who has political and moral views that do not fit into the new distorted order. Yeah, we're at just a little bit later already. We've been at just a little bit later for several years now in America. They're coming for us all. Those who murder the unborn cannot be trusted to govern the born. And so what we'll do next month, hopefully some interactive portions, but also diving into those more specific arguments and how you can turn them on their head, so that you guys can all be pro-life ninjas. Okay, let me jump into some questions that you guys sent along here, and feel free to type in any more as you do. If you came late, guys, just want to tell you again, we are looking for a more interactive platform moving forward, because we want to encourage that kind of interaction. We want people to actually verbally ask questions and you to, turn your mic on and be able to talk. As it grows, obviously that interaction will be limited, but we're looking at a few more platforms that will be more friendly to that. So thank you, guys. Let's see. Someone said, a great comment here. At conception, we have all the cellular information that we will ever be given. Cells cannot gain new information after conception. They can only lose it. Here we go. Yes, this is good. I was once a man trapped inside a woman's body, and then I was born. That's one of my favorites. That's how you bring abortion and transgenderism into the same thing. No, that's fun. Some great books someone put here. This is great from Susan. If you guys want some books to pour into yourself, if you're that passionate and have that much time to dive in, The Case for Life by Scott Klusendorf is probably the most accessible one, or Stand for Life is even more simple. Randy Alcorn's Pro-Life Answers to Pro-Choice Arguments, or Why Pro-Life, is very good. If you want to make a really deep dive, there's a book by Christopher Kazor, and I just forgot its name, the title of the book, but that's Frank Beckwith, Defending Life. But Christopher Kazor, K-A-C-Z-O-R, that's for my philosophy lovers. Okay, if you don't, that book still rattles my brain sometimes. But those are some of the ones that you guys can keep up on. Let's see if there's any other questions here. Do you have a Facebook page? Yes, I mentioned I have a Facebook page. It's hard to find though. Love to know Seth's advice on responding to our local drugstores. Yeah, so the Biden administration just took another swing at unborn children. You'll recall right after Biden walked into the White House, as I like to say, they got rid of the safety regulations on the sale of the abortion pill. You guys remember this? So now you've got mail order murder. You send them through the snail mail, usually from a pill mill website in India, and they get shipped straight to your mailbox. Well, now they've now added, we want to put them in pharmaceuticals, right? The pharmacy. We want you to be able to just walk into CVS and get it. A pro-life woman was already fired several months ago, last year, for saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to prescribe abortion pills. And she was fired. So get ready for more lawsuits, get ready for more ADF. But yes, I mean, how do you respond to that? I mean, continue to fight. I mean, this is the culture of death, that they're going to push to make abortion as cheap and as accessible as possible. And so ultimately, the real answer to that question is we need godly men and women elected. We need churches opening up 501c4s to help fund the campaigns of godly men and women who want to get into public office, because until legislators actually start using the full power of the state to ban abortion pills in pro-life states, to get it out of the postal service, and to be able to ban it, hopefully at the state level, to get it out of pharmacies, then they're just going to continue doing this. So more women are going to die in bathrooms, and thousands more unborn children are going to be killed as they're pushing it to drugstores and pharmacies as well now too. Let's see, any other questions here? Lots of comments on prayer. Yes, please pray for me. Please pray for the organization. If you came in late, I mentioned that we have hired a full-time assistant, a full-time social media content person, an interim chief of staff to handle our growth and get the right people in the right seats, with the goal of hiring 3 to 4 more people before halfway through this year. And so this is all a result of your guys' giving and generosity. We can't do this without you guys, and we're so grateful. All right, well, we got people from all over the place. That's awesome. You guys telling us where you're from. We got Susan from Ireland. We've got Virginia, Coeur d'Alene, Wisconsin, Dallas, Corona, California, lots of California, of course. Let's see if there's any other questions. Go ahead and type those in now, guys. I want to be respectful of your time. Seth, what is a successful strategy you use to get pastors and youth leaders more involved? So I won't take any credit for the fast-paced nature of my speaking schedule in churches. That's really Jack Hibbs and Rob McCoy that blew up my access to churches. And so I'll put all of that credit on them. So people have asked me that a lot. How are you getting into all these churches, right? Pregnancy centers that people want to, we try so hard. I can't take any credit for that. It's a total God thing. But what I will say is, I'm seeing a lot of people wake up. I think people are a little bit more aware of how horrific and breaking edge the culture of death is now. So I would say to you guys, if you're disgruntled and frustrated and discouraged, for as many of you guys, because you're so I know so many of you are so faithful at the local level to speak life, you've tried to get your pastors on board. Amen. Can I get a show of hands, your youth pastors, your elders, to do something, to speak on it, to engage? I see all these hands going up. See, I sense that heartbreak and frustration. What I would just say to you guys is try again. Try 1 or 2 more times. Here's a great story. Anyone know Pastor Alec Rollins? Know who I'm talking about? Westgate Chapel in Edmonds, Washington. He had Charlie out in 2021 or 2020, can't remember. And then he just had me out last summer, I can't recall. And then we had him speak at Love Life Washington conference, and I had him on the podcast. And if you guys listen to it, he actually said, I finally woke up. He's in his 70s, and he wasn't woke. He wasn't preaching heresy, but he was kind of the silent shepherd. Like he would talk about the pregnancy center once a year, Sanctity of Life. And then that's kind of it. And he admits that. He says that. And when he woke up and he decided to sue Inslee in a lawsuit with ADF for trying to shut down the church. And by the way, Jay Inslee backed off. And then he realized, you know what? While I've been in prayer meetings, while I've been asking God to pour his spirit out and to bring in revival, the other side has slowly been moving into my territory. When you talk about the unborn child, that's my territory. We talk about parental rights, that's my territory. We talk about children, that's my territory. You talk about marriage, that's my territory. I didn't ask for this fight, but they're bringing it to me. And he said, I apologize to my congregation for my silence and apathy on these issues. And so, let me just say, guys, try again. It could be that some of these youth pastors and elders and pastors have finally gone, oh my gosh, what hath I wrought? And so I would just say that try again. Obviously, if I can fit it into my schedule, I'll come out to any of the churches you guys want to get me into. I still speak at churches with 80 or 100 people. I still do that. It's just so I don't prioritize. I don't say no to small churches. I'm booked through June almost already, so it's difficult. But if I can make it work, I'll do that, because I want to wake up your guys' churches as well. Any option in the future to become an ambassador? Yeah. So we're in conversation with a good brother right now, a speaker, a brother friend, that we'll talk about in the future if he chooses to work with us, to start building those kind of ambassador relationships, so that, again, I can take less events. I think we're doing 14 or 15 churches, guys, from 2 days ago through the end of May, about 14 or 15 churches for the White Rose Resistance National Live Tour for the spring. And so it's amazing, but I can't keep up that pace. And so, yes, we do plan to have ambassador kind of relationships, both with big social media influencers in the future, but also with speakers. And then let's see, one or two more here. What has been the most difficult pro-abortion argument? Yeah, let's talk about that next week. But you guys may have heard the famous violinist or the burning research lab. 1,000 embryos are frozen and a toddler. Which one do you save in a burning building? Or the famous violinist. We'll get to some of the more difficult ones and show you how they're actually not all that difficult. How do we wake up our sleepy pastors who don't want to talk politics? Yeah, be gentle, be gracious, and then eventually, I think we agree. We reach a point where what does Christ say? Shake the dust off your feet and go to the next town. And so, yes, if your church, after you guys try again, like I just said, if it continues in that way, I would leave. I would not give the Lord's money and tithe to a church that after you have tried for years is still going to ignore the unborn, ignore the rights of children, ignore marriage, ignore the social good. All right. Well, this is awesome, guys. I think I looked at all the primary questions. I'm sorry if I missed one. Why don't you guys type in as we close out right now, anything that you would like to cover next month? Like I said, I do want to make this interactive. I do want you guys to feel like you're participating and not just listening to me rant, which I can do for a very long time. So as we close out, and I want to respect your time, some people are on Eastern time. I'm at 9 o'clock. Some of you are at 10 o'clock, and we got Ireland over here at 3 a.m. or something like that. So go ahead and type in anything you'd like to cover. Teaching the truth to elementary age homeschool children. That's beautiful. There is a good book by the Baumbergers. You guys know Ryan Baumberger, Black brother conceived in rape. He has a massive family. Radiance Foundation is the name of the organization, and he's a great speaker. They did a pro-life book for kids, Ryan Baumberger. So you can check that out. Anything else? Oh, thank you. Oh, you guys are also kind, just all your thank yous. But if you have anything you'd like me to cover, we want to take note of that and put that in there. Or any other comments at all. We are looking at a platform called Circle. If you guys have any other platforms that are great for large digital conversations where people tune in from all around the country, you can send those to us as well if you'd like us to look at it, as we do want to find the perfect fit and grow this to hundreds of people every month. Is there a way to reach people who use the rape and children argument? Yeah, that's good. We'll talk about that. I learned so much from your rants. That's good. That's nice. That makes me feel less self-conscious. Wonderful, guys. Anyone else from out of the country except Ireland? Is there anyone else? Go ahead and type that, and that's always fun to know. I know we had a lot of people from Canada and some other countries join the Allies after Calvary Chapel Chino Hills, which was incredible. Discord is a good tool to use for large groups. Awesome. Thank you. Discord. I have not heard of that one. We'll check that out. Yeah, next time wear your White Rose Resistance merch. We love that. And next time, come with questions as well. Come prepared, so that way we can be more intentional with that. Come with questions. Come with any resources you want to share with others. And then, if any of you guys here, and here's my final comment as we respect your guys' time, if any of you guys are interested or passionately interested in actually doing volunteer work and actually doing something at the ground level, kind of as a grassroots activist, let us know that as well, either in here or next month. Maybe we'll have a form or a poll or a question to fill out so we can see that, because we do like to see who will come out of this digital circle beyond just equipping, but actually saying, like, hey, if you got regional coordinators around the country for White Rose, then I'm your person. I'm here. I'm ready to move. Because ultimately, as you know, my heart is the church needs to stop waiting for 501c3 pro-life ministries to do their job for them. It's about we need to sow into those ministries financially, right? Of course, but it's time for the church to actually take spiritual responsibility for our calling. God has called the bride of Christ, the body of Christ, the blood-bought bride of Christ, to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And if the church had taken that role seriously from 1915, when Margaret Sanger first puts pen to paper and starts spouting her eugenic demonic poo-poo, then we would have never gotten into this position if the church was being the church. 501c3s are great, but there are way too many. because they're filling in the gap left open by the church. And I know you guys believe that, and that's why we want to mobilize and equip you onto the ground level. So, all right, White Rose tattoos, White Rose jewelry, someone said. I love that. We want to do all of that as we move forward. All right, well, God bless you guys. Let me close in prayer, just to commit this back into the Lord's hands. And I just want to say again, I'm so grateful for you guys, from $35 a month up to whatever you're at. We want to get tens of thousands of people at $35 a month from all around the world. My goal, as I've said before, is to need full-time security around my home in 2 years. That's my goal. And I think if I achieve, and here's why, because if I achieve that, I think the White Rose Resistance will be firing on every cylinder. Because if I shoot for that, then I don't have to worry about the activity of the organization. I'll know that if I've done that, we're doing exactly what we need to do. And so just so you guys know my heart and commitment, this is what I was born for. I've been sassy since conception, and you haven't seen me sassy yet. And so thanks for helping me be sassy. Thanks for helping me be the fighter that I believe I'm called to be. And let's create thousands of me. So we can send talented young men and women into schools and churches and youth groups and conferences all across the country and in the public square, to push back against the culture of death before it's too late. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for being the truth, for being the divine logic of the universe. And we're so grateful for everyone here, for how you're moving in the hearts and minds of people. I think it fills us all with hope. I think I speak for everyone. I think that we have hope when we see this number of people in a first little mini Zoom launch with a little pro-life speaker that no one knows about, then seeing this many people engaged, excited, ready to move. I think that's just evidence that your spirit is moving. I think Aslan has landed. And our response to that tells us everything we need to know about our faith. And so we pray that you would encourage, continue to inspire everyone here, protect them, protect their families in these uncertain Bidenflation, scary times, and fill them with courage, fill them with faith, give them the gift of faith, give me the gift of faith, and help us to speak courageously and bravely and lovingly, and just leave the results to you. So continue to move through your church, continue to work miracles through the people here, just through their conversations, just one-on-one conversations, work miracles, save lives, change minds, change hearts. We commit the White Rose Resistance to you. We thank you for everyone that's helping do this. I can't build this alone. Thank you for everyone that's responded to that call and is helping build this. And we're excited to see 12 months from now in our 11th or 12th call, what the organization and the culture war looks like, and what we've done for you. So we commit this to you. We commit the funds to you, the staff to you, everything that we're building. And we ask that we would not hand this generation and this culture down to our children and grandchildren. We believe that we can end this evil. We believe that we see evidence of how you're moving, and we believe it's possible. And so we commit it to you. We believe all things are possible with you, and where 70, 80, 90, or 100 or more are gathered here, then you are amongst us. And we thank you for your spirit and your presence. We pray this in your name. Amen. All righty, guys, let's do something crazy. Everyone turn their mic on and say bye. And well, let's blow out everyone's hearing. Let's blow out everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Seth brother.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. God bless.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
That was cool.
Bye.
My picture.
Bye.
Bye.